So a couple of other, I guess, legal rulings that have really impacted this. One would be the federal ruling of the 8317 rule on expenditure and maintenance of infrastructure versus Detroit and the suburbs. And the other would be the Headley Amendment, which is really all about deciding about, well, to what extent a progressive affordability, income-based affordability standard can actually be applied. What are your takes on either of those rulings, the 8317 rule and the Headley Amendment?
Yeah, I can speak to the latter, not the former.
Sure.
Yeah, the whole Headley Amendment controversy is an extraordinary red herring. You asked me a little while ago about how I react emotionally. Okay, that one gets me. Okay, because it makes me angry. All of it makes me angry, but this in particular because it's done so brazenly. It has absolutely nothing to do with this issue, but it has been a convenient excuse and distraction that the city and the utility have used in order to shut down any type of informed and intelligent discussion of the possibility of a water affordability plan. Yeah, so the Headley Amendment is a provision of the Michigan Constitution that says that before that a government is not able to institute a tax on its citizens without approval by a majority of the voters in that jurisdiction. And there have been, from time to time, concerns or questions about whether certain costs which have been characterized as fees have in fact been disguised taxes. Mm-hmm. And those have been challenged in court from time to time. In cases where the court has concluded that they really aren't fees, they're taxes, mm-hmm. There has been some liability of some sort, for the governing body. Most of the affordability plans that are indexed to income involve or require or contemplate the water customers paying some additional amount in order to finance this plan. And what the city and the utility have done is to say that additional amount is not just a fee for ensuring the stability of the water affordability plan, that it is in fact a tax. Mm. And that because the Headley Amendment says that they can't do that, then they're not going to do it. When asked to cite some type of authority for this particular analysis, they point to a case that was decided involving, I believe, sewers in Lansing, called Bolt versus the City of Lansing. And they say that case makes it clear that they can't have an affordability plan. If you read that case, and I've read it many, many times, with the belief that maybe I'm missing something, but I'm not missing anything. That case says exactly the opposite. It says that you can have a water affordability plan, but they, just boldly and brazenly will stare you in the face and say that it says that you can't. I mean, what the case says, among other things, is it establishes criteria or factors that are considered to determine whether, in fact, what you have is a tax or whether you have is a fee. Mm-hmm. One of the things that they look at is whether what is going to be collected is something that's going to just sort of flow into the general treasury and is going to be used for any number of different things, to fix potholes or to repair traffic lights or whatever it may be. All right, and obviously, this fee is earmarked specifically for the water affordability program. That's what it's there for. One of the other factors is whether this is a voluntary payment or not. Okay, so if you own a piece of property in the city of Detroit, and you decide that you're not going to make it your primary residence. In fact, you're not going to have anybody inhabit it. You're just going to let it sit there. Even though nobody's living there, it is still subject to property tax. They're going to send you a bill for property tax, and you're going to have to pay it. You don't have any choice about that. You own the property, you got to pay property tax, right? But if you're not going to have anybody live there, you can make the decision, nobody's living there, I don't need water service, so therefore I'm not going to have it. And if you don't have water service, you're not paying this fee that's associated with the water affordability plan either. So it's your choice, as to whether you pay this or not, which makes it very much unlike a tax, right? Okay, and so there's another factor as well, but as to all three of them, it is quite clear that this is not a disguised tax. And not only that, but the legal unit, the lawyers unit for the Detroit City Council took it upon itself to prepare a lengthy, scholarly legal analysis that reaches that same conclusion, which has been made available to all concerned. But nevertheless, whenever you attempt to engage the lawyers for the city or DWSD in a discussion about this, to try and reach some sort of an understanding about why it's not a tax, they just completely shut down. They refuse to discuss it with you, and it's clear why, because they know what they're doing and they know what they're saying. So, at this point, I refuse to engage in any further efforts to try and persuade anybody that this is permissible under the Michigan Constitution. It is a total waste of time, a red herring and a distraction, and I will use my energy elsewhere and otherwise.
So where does the Attorney General, the state's Attorney General, and the state's team of lawyers come in on this side, come in on this issue?
I don't know if they have been asked. And you generally have to think long and hard about whether you're going to seek an Attorney General's opinion. I don't know that we were going, in the prior administration, we were going to put this before them, right, because you can get what you don't want, right, and you're stuck with it once you do. And at this point, as I said, I wouldn't do it only because I'm not spending any more time on it.
Right.
We could get an Attorney General's opinion that says that the exact same thing we've been saying forever. It's not going to make any difference with these people. They will completely ignore it, and they will stick to their guns as they have in the past. And so I don't like being run around in circles like that, and I just refuse to do it.
So it seems like there are so many moving parts over here, because even within the city, you've got the city council, you've got the city council legislative policy division, you've got the administration itself, DWSD, and so I'm wondering, is there such a thing that you can identify right away that some parts are more in favor of an affordability policy and some parts are dead set against it? I mean, DWSD and the mayor's administration seem to be more against it than for. But what about city council?
Well, I don't, again, it's just my personal opinion.
Sure,
I think that there are people within the city administration and DWSD who would embrace with enthusiasm a water affordability plan. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I think that Gary Brown, the director of DWSD, would do it. I think that there are individual members of the city council who would do it. I mean, there are other individuals within these structures who I think would do it. But the orders are coming in and I'm speculating, I think the orders and the agenda are coming from other places, on high, and I don't even know that they're in government. As I said, Detroit is in the midst of full-scale gentrification, and the money is calling the shots. And I think that there are people who may want to do certain things, and they're powerless to do it because that's not part of the strategy.
Where does the Great Lakes Water Authority sort of fit into this puzzle of moving parts?
I don't know that I can speak with authority about that. They have, early on, there was speculation about, they're in some ways being responsible for a lot of this. There was talk at one point about the possibility of selling the utility, and that in order to make it an attractive product, they were going to try and strip the roster of customers of all people who were not paying, and that the shutoffs were about that, so that they could present a customer roster that was good paying
Right.
customers and that kind of thing. And
Show Wall Street backers.
yeah, and then there was question about to what extent they were going to basically take over. I don't really know, and I think a lot of the machinations and the discussions about the relationship between the two entities is something that goes on behind closed doors. Others may know. I don't personally. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the obstacles that you faced? For instance, a lot of the shut-off data, for instance, is not readily available. A lot of it needs to be FOIA'd, for instance, and not a lot of people who have been affected firsthand by water shutoffs are even all too keen to come up and identify themselves for fear of having their children perhaps removed from them, or having their homes foreclosed on, or being evicted by their landlords. So could you maybe talk a little bit about some of the broader obstacles that you face in trying to sort of marshal the evidence, I guess?
Yeah, I don't believe that even DWSD knows how many people they've shut off. I'm serious. I don't think. I mean, there have been times when we've asked them to produce records of the number of people shut off, and it just appeared that they don't have them to give. That they just don't know. And as to the issue of individual families that are facing this, there are a lot of concerns that they have. I mean, I think the major one that I've heard is that child protective officials will hear about them not having water, and that's a basis for removing children from the home, and so they don't want that known at all. And there is some stigma that's attached to it, but I think that's probably diminishing now with the just the sheer number of people who are facing the same kinds of consequences. And unlike the stereotypes that exist about these people, many of them have pride, and it's really aggravating to watch some of them have to deal with this. I think probably the worst story that I've heard in all the time that I've dealt with this issue, I heard just a couple months ago about a woman who had been living in her home for more than 50 years and who was extremely conscientious. She's one of these people that goes completely against the stereotype. She scrupulously paid her bills every single month, never missed a payment on anything, not just water, but anything. But she found herself not receiving water bills over the course of a couple of months, and it concerned her. And so she called and said, "I've not been receiving my bills. Can you please give me some bills so that I'll know how much to pay?" And they said, "We don't know why. We thought we sent you bills." And so they didn't send her any. So she used old bills to make her best guess as to how much she owed. and she sent them a check for that amount. Without any notice or warning, they came out and cut her water off. And when asked why, they said that she had guessed and she was 10 cents short. I mean, what kind of people do this?
Right. What happened in this case?
I don't know. It was a story that she presented in a meeting, and I assumed that she was and hoped that she was able to get reconnected when she paid her 10 cents. But you know, that's the kind of thing that should never have happened.
Right. So going forward, I mean, you are privy to a lot of these conversations happening. You're attending listening sessions, for example, one at Brightmoor. You're engaged with community organizers on the ground, like We the People and Monica Lewis Patrick. So going forward, what is the strategy that I mean, it might not even be a fully formed strategy right now for you, but what are you thinking in terms of this is sort of where we need to move towards?
Well, that is a strategy that the individuals and the groups that you mentioned will have to come to agreement about collectively. My own view is that you know, when you're fighting a war, and I regard this as a war, that you have to identify the enemy's vulnerability and you have to attack it without mercy. And I think that the one place where they remain vulnerable is in the city of Detroit brand. They are attempting to market the city internationally as a you know, a bright new cosmopolitan, enlightened and diverse community that offers opportunities for people who want to live in a very upscale and you know, enlightened kind of an environment. I think we can put a lie to that. You know, I think that we need to figure out ways to ensure that every place that they're marketing the city, that the targets of that marketing campaign know that this is a city that has no heart when it comes to people who are most in need and who are being deprived of water. That they're a major human rights violator, and that if they want to support that, then this is the city to come to. I think that you know, one of the things that seemed to have made the city tremble a little bit was when the United Nations came. They did not want the eyes of the world looking at this problem. They still don't. And I think that you know, tainting the brand is, in my view, probably the most effective way to attack them.